Thank you for attending. This is going to be the connected blending unit launch for the dealers. We are recording this, so if you do need to show this to other personnel at the dealerships, it will be access to this video. For those that don't know me, I'm Justin Custer, Solution Manager of MQH and Farm Supply. Jarl and Monica, who is in here, kind of my counterparts. We've worked really hard on getting this unit out, and we'll just go quickly through the overview of the, let's see, there we go. Product overview, some key features of the system, as well as the online platform. I'll run through that really quickly, and then we'll actually go into the platform itself. We'll talk about the training and support. This is essentially your guys' training. It's a very simple system, so we feel that the training of this will be a lot simpler than the Instamix. And then we'll talk about the program and the rollout as we move forward. So essentially, the cbu300 is our latest mixing system for all of our concentrated products. It can store up to 32 total formulas. Out of our formulas, we actually do have more than that 32, but right now that should be plenty of formulas overall based on the products that we have, and you can cater and customize the amount of formulas you have on these units. It does come with an online platform, which is unique compared to the Instamix system. Before, we had to use a flash drive to extract any reports and see any of those overall usages. Now we have an online platform called cm2w, uses a SIM card, and we're using cell towers to communicate and transfer information. DLaval is covering the cost of the first 3 years of that platform, and in that platform, you control the programming and reporting. Overall, it's a pretty simple system. 3 peristaltic tubes with 1 flow meter. We simplified that, and then we have a user-friendly touch pad controller. Overall, this is simplified. The maintenance is lower. The squeeze tubes are the majority of the maintenance that you have to do, outside of maybe some check valves. Overall, everything works and is pretty robust. We have error and failure reporting now, and some in-depth data retrieval to kind of better help you, support you and your customers when it comes to the support of their concentrates and their T-tips and making management decisions with those T-tips. Overall, it's a lot more economical as well for both us and you as dealers to provide this unit in comparison to Instamix systems. And we've had several test facilities out there in the field, and we have minimal maintenance issues. So overall, we feel pretty strong that this is going to be the unit that we're using overall, and we'll talk a little bit more about this strategy later on. So as you can see, if I can get my laser pointer to work. So what we have here is the 3 peristaltic tubes and pumps that are going to be in a DLaval concentrate of some form or fashion. You're going to use anywhere between 1 to 3 of those pumps, depending on the products. We have a water valve that's going to control the flow of water. And then this white check valve, as well as these 3 gray check valves, all go into our chemical manifold. The chemical manifold then feeds into a filter located right before the flow meter. And here's your 1 single flow meter. This style of dumbing it down to just 1 flow meter, I think, is going to improve the overall accuracy, as well as we don't have all that redundancy with failures of flow meters just on 1 particular pump. And like I said, we've had some really good success overall. Plus, if you do need to repair it, you're just replacing one instead of potentially 2 or 3 flow meters. Then it goes down into our next valve, where it will either feed into your priming line to calibrate the system, or it will go to our ready-to-use tank after flowing through a mixing chamber. Here's our user pad. This will allow you to prime, calibrate the unit, as well as pick the formulas that are already downloaded into the system. And then over here is our 7-gallon tank. This does come with 2 probes, much like the Instamix, where we have an operating probe, and then we also have an emergency overfill probe. So the operating probe is going to be the one that functions normally and will call for batches to be made. The initial setup will be done by myself as well as Monica. Her and I will be kind of your point of contacts as far as getting people set up, getting units set up. The dealer, as well as the support personnel that you have on site, those we need to designate. And really, it's just a simple providing their contact information as far as their name, as well as their email. We'll need the facility name, and then also any dairy personnel that might be using the unit as well. And then just as a precautionary measure, we're asking for the unit's serial number. That way we ensure that we're getting the right units attached to the facilities that you guys want. It's kind of a plug and play system for the most part. And some of the best success that we've had so far is that plug it in at your dealership or somewhere that you have self-service to a larger degree. Because we realize sometimes in some locations, either dairies don't have great self-service, or we're putting it in a place where the signal is really low inside the barn. So plug it in so that we can download all the settings prior to you guys installing. That will create a lot less headaches for you. As you can kind of see, right here is the antenna. So that can be attached to a longer cable. So if we really do need to, or we're struggling with a connection with that SIM card to a cell tower, we can place this outside. It does have a magnetic bottom. So in some form or fashion, we can try to improve the connection. So here's the online platform. We're going to go through this really quickly because we'll just manually go through it. Let's see, Richard's got a comment. We'll go through this real quick, Richard, and I'll get back to your questions. This is where we're going to set you guys up. This is the home page. We're going to quickly go through the organizations, the users, the facilities, how we set up a device, and then some of the reporting that you guys can look at. Overall, this is what an organization is going to look like. Every dealership is going to fall under DLABAL. So your dealership is going to be the overall umbrella organization that all your facilities and devices fall under. What you're going to see is the dealer's name, how we set you guys up, and then the active units that we have. Just because it doesn't show connection is not necessarily inherently a bad thing, but it will show you how well we are connecting to some of your units. Under your organization, we will have your user personnel. And so similar fashion, you'll have your users. They'll have their user access or level that's will give them certain functions. My overall platform, I'm an admin, so some of my views are going to look a little bit different than yours. And then some of your facilities and devices in the further columns. This is where the users are going to be created as far as, or their page is going to look like. again, it's going to show you the organizations that you're attached to. This should only bring up your dealership for the most part. And then you'll have your facilities off to the right. Some of these will show facility level reporting, at which we'll send error alerts. And we'll go into that a little bit more later. But this is essentially all we need as far as creating a actual user. Like I said, just your first, last name, and an email. And then we'll set you up with your access. Super users are going to be designated primarily as DLaval technical support and some of the triple S's. Operators is primarily going to be at the dealer level, what you guys will see and have your functionality at. And then your customers will have a much limited or more limited scope of functionality, but they can still do things like change existing formulas to a different formula as far as products are concerned. So similar fashion, it's kind of redundant, but it makes it a little simpler to actually go through the platform itself. Again, we have our facility names, how many devices are attached to those facilities, and then the connectability of that. And then over here, you can see that there's some reports that you can start pulling from this level and at the device level. You can also up here create a new facility. So once this thing gets going and everybody has a little bit more comfortability of using the system, both Monica and I will probably just stay in our admin role, but step back from some of the overall setup. But for right now, we want to make this as seamless as possible. And then you have under your facilities, it'll pull up all the devices. So once you actually go into your facility, I'll go back for a second. And if you clicked the highlighted blue, that will take you into the 2 devices for that particular facility. Or if you hit devices, it'll bring up all of your devices under your organization. Again, you'll see some functionality as far as what the current software upgrade is, what your connection to the cell tower is, and then you'll have a lot more functions as far as reports and the dashboard, which we'll look at here in a minute. So as far as reportings, off to the left, you can get into all the reports. You could also hit that one tab that shows reports, and it gives you all this, what is highlighted. So you can adjust some of these things up here to see a better scope of what might be happening. And this is kind of an ideal situation. Program completed. That means we created a batch. There were no errors. There were no issues. You will see like a flow alarm or lack of product alarm, any of those types of things in this column. And then it'll just tell you some of the overall functionalities. So here's a couple different consumption reports. You can see it in bar graphs, pie graphs. This one's kind of key. This is your flow recording for each type of pump that's kicking on. We're using CDX10 here as a predip, so there's only 2 reports. But all of this can be seen on the dashboard. It'll bring it up in one screen. So much like anything with DLaval, Freshdesk and tech support is going to be your best friend. Again, I'm very fluent with it, but for the most part, we would want to drive any of this through Freshdesk. One that just helps us track the issues that might be occurring, and we can record those, and then we can work with CFS on any sort of improvements that need to be made on the overall unit. So here's the phone number, the support. Same with the overall unit and the chemicals that we're pumping through the system. Any quality or warranty issues there would be followed in the normal capacity through Freshdesk and the warranty form. So with technical services kind of being your overall umbrella for your first line of defense, obviously I would want to call out Justin, Kyle, and Robert as some of your triple S's. We've got Richard on here as well. Anybody that's a triple S, we'll get them up to speed and get them a little bit more comfortable with this unit. And then last line of defense, I say last line, but don't hesitate to reach out to any of us. We're very accessible, of myself or Monica. But really, Scott Chapman's also very accessible. He is our point of contact at CFS who makes this unit for us. I was hoping he was going to be on this call today, but we've had some scheduling issues. So I'll run you through some of the platform itself. That way you're not missing out on what that looks like and a little bit more in depth of what the devices do. So we'll get all that contact information for you guys. We do, much like the Instamix, have a CBU program. This is a little bit more simplified than the Instamix, and you have one part number to. Now, unlike Instamix, and Marlene maybe likes this or doesn't like this, but the Instamix part number was blocked as you made the order. In this situation, we do not have this blocked. If you submit this form, you will get the credits that we're about to talk about. If you don't, you're going to be invoiced normally, but I don't want any flow or hold up on our end of you guys getting a unit in the system. So we've done this slightly different approach. And really what it comes down to as far as the eligibility, 1 unit per application. So unlike the Instamix, we do not have a 3-way pump. You're going to have potentially up to 2 units to do a pre and post. As long as they are roughly 2,000 milkings or more, then we would do a no charge like we have with some of the other Instamix systems. If it is less than that, what we have done is we still want to make this an advantage for you of doing a $1,500 credit off a dealer net. And that's mostly to do with the fact that we recognize this is a significantly more like large herd type offering and solution. But if there's a facility that just really needs to use some of our concentrates, we don't want to limit what we're doing. We are also looking at other options of a more cost-effective unit. So as we get to that place and we find a solution for that, we may adjust this program. But for now, this is kind of covering all of our bases for all of our concentrates. So the maintenance cost for the unit is solely the responsibility of you and or the customer, however you guys have that structured today. And what we would look for is a 3-year TDIP commitment from you and the customer. Now, this agreement, I would also say, is between the dealership and DeLaval. This is an offering you get to put out there for your customer, but we want to eliminate that conversation of who actually owns the unit. This gives you the ability to take that ownership, and if they move away from your consumables and your TDIPs, then it's up to you to determine if you're taking this thing off the wall or not. So the CM2W platform, like I said, DeLaval is covering the initial 3-year cost of the online platform. Future costs, we are looking how we'll handle that, but there is a charge that will be applied after that initial 3 years. It's pretty minimal. It's about $10 a month, I believe, but it will add up as you potentially have 10 plus units out in the field. So we'll work on that in the coming years. But for right now, all of that cost is covered in the initial purchase, so to speak, of that 3-year contract. The units will function normally without the online platform, but no software updates, no formula changes or additions as we bring potentially new products out on the market or have to tweak what we're doing with existing formulas. and you will not have any reporting capabilities to tell you errors or anything like that. So the initial priority for these units is obviously new business to help you grow your business, and also to address any really troubling or failing Instamix units. We want to get those out of the field and remove that frustration for you and your customer. We also want to look at aging agreements or contracts that we've had initially with the dispensing systems prior to this. So if there are customers that we can retain or give them this added benefit, we want to offer them the new system as well. If they've got a fully functioning Instamix and you had no issues, we're probably going to put that at the lower end of the priority, but we would have that conversation and figure out how to adjust and transition them at some point in time. Right now, the Instamixes are not getting phased out for the 2, 3, or 4 pump unit, but we do see that this unit will eventually replace the 3 and 4 pump unit. So that is going to be our future plan. So in the next, say, 18 to 24, some of your 3 to 4 pump units. Right now, CFS is heavily invested in building inventory for this launch. So as of today, we've got inventory for orders. So don't hesitate to put an order in, and let's get the ball rolling. In a typical world right now, I would say lead times are at least 4 weeks. So if you've got a new facility, or if you're planning to replace a certain amount of Instamix systems or have new business, let's have those kind of lead times of about 4+ weeks. That way we're not putting anybody in a bad situation. We are also changing up a little bit and doing some emergency stocks in Kansas City to improve the critical spares that might be needed. And so we will be storing actual inventory in Kansas City and not be 100% relying on CFS to carry that inventory for us. We'll go into the sales hub in a minute, but we have the manual, much like we did with the Instamix. We'll have all the installation guide, the wiring, the plumbing, troubleshooting guides in that. We have some how-to videos as kind of a quick reference for setup. And then we've got ordering guidelines and spare parts list form, as well as the CM2 user sign-up form that all come together. And that all roughly looks like this. So we'll go to questions, kind of a quick break as I transition, and I'll look at the chat real quick. So Richard, the cell service is a little bit easier for us. This unit could do Wi-Fi. So that is a component that can be added. We didn't go that route because digital security is part of that, but also the additional cost. But we can look at the one-offs if we really had to. But we feel like the cell service gives a little bit more fluidity in the overall communication and connection between the online platform. So give me a minute to do this transition. There we go. Any other questions? Okay. Just keep plugging along. So real quickly, you guys can see my screen. So this is the sales hub as it is today. We're seeing more maintenance on the glycolic. Not that I've seen. I mean, the wear components are still tubing. And that really depends on runtime and hours. Like if you're making a lot of batches, that can adjust your overall maintenance, but I wouldn't say the maintenance is any more or less than any other of our products. So right here we have the playbook, brings you into your options. We're going to go into consumables, milk quality, animal health. And hopefully this is not the first time you guys are seeing this. So for the most part, we have worked really hard on completing this portion of the playbook. We still have a little bit of stuff to add, but under dispensing systems, we have the Instamix blending unit tab, and then here's your connected blending unit with all your how-to videos that have populated. Only thing left that we have to add is our product information sheets. We just have a couple more revisions to make, and then that will be populated here hopefully in the next week or two. But we have our ordering guidelines, which is a full document that encompasses all of the critical spares, the part numbers for everything, as well as the sign-up forms for new users and facilities, and then your instruction manuals. And then we have quick overviews of components, installation wiring guides, priming the pump, calibrating the pumps, and then your recommended maintenance, which, again, for the most part, is the squeeze tube and rollers. So we'll go a little bit more in depth into this one. As far as the overall facility, this takes a little bit of time to get through, but overall, you're going to go through your facilities. Like I said, it's going to pop up into one of these locations where we designate a dairy, and you're going to see the overall connection, the overall devices. Let's see. Go into, where is it? Oh, there it is. We've been using this as kind of our test facility to look at. So under facilities, like I said, you pop into it and it will display the number of units that are designated under that facility. You can click into the device, and this is where you're going to start getting some functionality within that device. So here is a good place for notes. You have the ability for notes also within the facilities, so you can start, time stamping when flow meters or components were replaced. If you need to make some small changes, you would go to this edit, and it would just simply be changing either the facility or the device name. As you potentially gain or lose customers, you need to move a unit, you can do that. And then here is the dashboard button, which will take you to the overall usage, and it'll give you all this information. You can make some adjustments as far as the timestamp, but when we calculate these flows, this is the average per day of that flow meter per pump. So it's not every time it makes a batch, but it does average over a 24-hour period. So you get a snapshot of potentially what changes have been made in that device. The other thing that's going to be important in the overall device is this options. You have settings and programs. All of this, for the most part, is going to be set up by myself, and this doesn't mean you can't go in and make some changes, but for the most part, we will make this as simple as possible. But for going through all of these options, we're going to go into edit. So your general settings, for the most part, is the overall functionality of the system itself. So this keyboard setting is for your user device. You can click on and off all of these things. As you click them off, they are now not going to work on the user pad. So essentially you would want to leave this alone for the most part as far as the user pad. But if you needed to, you can completely kill this user pad, and it doesn't have any functionality, and you're doing most of it on the online platform. You could actually wire this in. There are some instructions to do an external alarm. So if there is an issue or there's an alarm, they run out of product or something like that, you can actually run like a strobe light or some sort of audio, sound to signal to the milkers that something's wrong with the unit, that they need to just either go in and restart it or call you guys. And then obviously these tabs all pertain to up here. For the most part, you're going to want all of these settings, at least at the dealer level. So TDIP settings, these are your two signals. These are your probes and floats that run the batches. So signal 1, I think we have up to 8 signals, but for the most part, we set up everything, or CFS sets up everything as signal 1 for your operational float, and then your E signal or your emergency stop will be signal 2. If one of these signals and relays burns out, we have 6 more to play with, and it's just a matter of rewiring some things. Also, if the float head, that magnet is inverted or replaced incorrectly, we can invert that signal real quickly to still make that probe functional as normal. Same with the emergency stop. The batch settings, so this can be adjusted. This batch setting for the delay is in between each batch. It takes 5 seconds before it runs into the next one. This gives you just enough time to do on the user pad to hit the stop button if you need to. This can be increased or decreased. Right now we have it set at 5. Consecutive batches, we do have a limit on this on the initial setup, just to make sure that we're not overflowing things as kind of a secondary system to manage and not overflow the 7-gallon unit. So each batch, how we have it set up right now is makes a gallon. So 5 consecutive batches should be enough for you. I know we've made some small tweaks here and there and used a different size container. So in this instance, we may have to adjust this initially. And then the timeout, the batch timeout here is just once it hits this number, this is how long it takes before it initializes into the next phases of batches, at which point it'll do another 5 batches. This again can also be adjusted depending on what we're dealing with. This is not something that you're totally going to be utilizing, but it might come into play. This is just an additional pump, so you can wire in another pump and it into the ready-to-use container if there's a need. We haven't had any mixing issues thus far with the 7-gallon tank, so I don't see you guys needing this too much, but that is an option for you. And then the dosing group settings, this is for the flow sensor. All flow sensors are dual edge, so this won't need to be changed or adjusted. So some of this will just kind of stay as is, but it does give you what you've calibrated your water pump to be, so to speak, as far as what the water pressure is, how many ticks it has taken. And then here's some of the alarms that we have. If we have 32 to 400 ounces per minute, that's a good range for us. If we do have below this, we could adjust, but for the most part, we would want to address the flow issues at the dairy, because 32 ounces is not a lot. And then our achieved flow rate time, This could be adjusted. All this means is that the flow meter itself will wait a certain period of time before it kicks on a potential alarm, and it's sensing whatever flow rate. 5 seconds seems pretty appropriate, but we have had to make some adjustments, in particular with the water, to achieve the flow rates that we want. And then everything else is, these are more water alarms as far as product attempts, and then water dosage attempts in a particular batch before it alarms out. And then those product delays before that goes into an official alarm. So we have 3 attempts. It'll wait 20 seconds. And once it hits those 3 attempts, it'll trigger an alarm, and same with just the overall water. Pump settings. This is just the pumps in use. Generally speaking, we'd have anywhere between 1 to 3 of these indicated, and then we have a product associated with it, as well as the calibration quantities, and then your low and high flow alarms. And that's about it for the settings. I'll pause real quick. Any questions on those? Looks like there's something else in the chat. Calibration, I would recommend, it's going to be similar to the Instamix, but I've done enough calibrations that the calibration holds pretty well. So as long as you're not losing prime or anything like that, the benefit of the flow meter is even as those pump tubes wear out, it's going to measure whatever the flow rate is of that, kind of regardless. But if we needed to, we could bypass the flow meter and just run off time. But I would say a good practice is at least once a month just to verify that the product is mixing correctly, as long as you're not having any issues. If you get comfortable and the unit's performing the way it should be, I would say most people aren't doing that once a month, but that's a good benchmark to start from. So we'll go back to view device, and then just real quickly, we'll go into formulas. So this one doesn't have a lot of formulas. This is one of our first units that we demoed through. And so this is not something that you guys will have any ability to change. We can add and subtract formulas as needed, but you can go in and add the overall formulas. But this is what a formula would look like. Here's the sequence of events of how things would activate in that batch. Generally speaking, all of our batches, we like to prime the unit, so to speak, with water, get that flow meter kind of cleaned out as best as possible, start putting concentrate through it, at which point pump 1 would activate and start pumping its appropriate amount of product. And then pump 2 would kick in, and then we would follow that up again with kind of a cleaning flush with water. But we are making 1 gallon of product or 128 ounces in each of our formula batches for all of our concentrates. So despite having no functionality of changing the formulas, we could add formulas. So we could get in here and start adding our existing predefined formulas for you, as well as one of the nice functions here is this action tab. So one, you can remote calibrate. You would still need somebody at the dairy, but they could calibrate for you and input the information for you. There's a copy wizard, which is kind of a handy function of as you have multiple units out there, and if they're set up the same way that you would want on another facility. You could just copy all the settings and go into this, select whatever device you want to copy from, and hit the copy, and it will copy over all the settings. And then that way you can quickly get a unit up and running. And then there's move facility. Input signal log is also an important one. I don't think this one will have much as far as input signals, but it will show, it ever loads. It will show just kind of a series of events of what happened within a batch. And this is kind of a good diagnostic tool of the overall unit functioning correctly. And you can see where maybe it activated and deactivated or might have had an error. All right. So here is facility products. Here's some other stuff that we didn't talk about, but here again, here's notes under the facility. You can add whatever you want, either your route people or your service people. And then I think that is about it. So I'll keep that up for a minute. Any other questions? I'll take silence as everybody's awesome. I know it's a Monday morning, so if you do have questions, we will get my contact information and Scott's out to you guys once we get this sent out, and you guys can access this. Let's see. So John's asking, the inventory aspect of this should be touched on. So this is, let me see if I can bring that up real quick. So here's the ordering guidelines. And this is going to be, we try to keep this simple and keep it all into one document. So really, as I said, here's one part number. This is a complete unit. This will give you everything. You do not have to add a bunch of additional components in your overall order. You're just going to order anywhere between 1 to 2, or if you have multiple facilities, however many units you want. Here's the full list of our concentrates to date. And then here are the list of a complete list of spare parts. This is something that we're still trying to find best practices on of what actual inventory you need. I would say if you at least need one quantity for every 3 to 4 units, but here's what we would consider your critical spares list of what you would need on site. And then further down, this is just your form that you would submit to both Monica and I with our email addresses at the bottom. Just real quickly, what products that you need, your dealership name, the farm name, and then the new users, whether that's at the dealership or at the dairy. It's back over. Does that answer your question, John?
No, I just was making sure that everybody knew if you input the inventory um, into the website, it's hard to get in the habit of doing that. But by
Okay.
it takes out, it accounts for your daily usage, and then it kind of shows, how many days until you need to have another barrel there. So,
I gotcha. Yep.
using CDX10, even on 2,400 cows, a activator and base is going to, last them, 3-4 months, give or take. So it's good that you could use that as a tool to, help sell the producer
Yep. Yep.
on
No,
that
I
side of
understand
things.
what you're asking for now too. Okay. So what he's talking about is we do have this feature, and thanks for bringing this up, where you can actually input how much you're dropping off, how much you're delivering, and it will track the overall usage of that product and let you know as you're getting closer to being empty on the inventory on site of the dairy itself. So thank you for bringing that up. But as we set up those pumps, this is part of some of the reporting you guys can get with that consumption feature, and it will set up some alarms for you guys to essentially know when you're hitting a certain volume and needing to deliver product. So. Okay, anything else? Thank you again, John. Okay, with that, I will give you guys some time back of your day. I appreciate you guys attending. Like I said, we'll make this available for everybody if they want to go back and look. And then we'll also get you guys the contact information. So, and with that, I appreciate it. And you guys have a fantastic day.